Romanian police are expanding their investigation of the former kickboxer Andrew Tate.
The controversial influencer Andrew Tate has been accused of putting a gun in a woman's face.
Police in Romania are questioning Andrew Tate into alleged crimes, including sex with a minor and money laundering.
Andrew Tate, the man who once dominated every feed, flooding timelines with arrogance, flashy cars, and wild claims. He sold himself as a 4-time world kickboxing champion, yet the professional community never officially recognized those titles. Still, Tate paraded them like trophies, holding them up as proof that he was built different. His empire of influence didn't stop there. Hustlers University was advertised as the ultimate secret to wealth. But in reality, it was nothing more than a dressed-up multi-level marketing scheme, draining money straight from the pockets of his own followers. This manufactured alpha male persona, fast cars, mansions, private jets, cigar smoke, built the illusion of unstoppable power. But that same image eventually dragged him into a darker reality. Arrested in Romania, facing allegations of human trafficking, abuse, and money laundering, Tate now stares at the possibility of spending years locked away. His brand of untouchable masculinity turned into a courtroom drama that still has the world watching. And yet, it's impossible to deny the scale of his influence. In 2022, Tate's content racked up over 12 billion TikTok views, while more than 200,000 paying students signed up to learn his so-called secrets to success. He wasn't just an online figure. He was a cultural storm that made millions either worship him or despise him.
I think Andrew Tate is a unique evil in the world, and he's influencing a generation of younger men. That is a unique evil, I think.
But here's the burning question. Was Andrew Tate truly the victim of a shadowy matrix that he swears is out to destroy him? Or was this all one giant performance meant to cover up the cracks behind his glamorous facade? Before we break down the scandals, we need to rewind to when the spotlight still shone bright on Tate's early days in the ring, flaunting belts and calling himself a world champion. Andrew Tate built his first wave of hype in the ring, where his aggressive style and knockout wins made him look untouchable. To his followers, he wasn't just a fighter, he was a warrior, an icon of raw dominance. But Tate wasn't content with being remembered only for martial arts. He flipped that glory into something much bigger, stepping out of the cage and reinventing himself as the poster boy of so-called modern masculinity. He started draping himself in luxury, tailored suits, million-dollar supercars, diamond-studded watches, and sprawling mansions. Every photo and clip screamed wealth and power, and soon his message shifted. Tate stopped talking about kicks and punches and instead preached about being a real man. His slogan, "Society is weakening men, and he alone is the alpha model." That claim lit a fire online. But the brighter Tate's spotlight got, the more his own words started working against him. The darkness wasn't coming from enemies. It was coming from the myths he created himself.
My father was a chess grandmaster. I was on track to become a chess grandmaster. So
he was a legitimate chess grandmaster.
My father was the highest rated black chess player in history.
Really?
Yeah. So my father was a big G in chess.
Yeah.
So I kind of grew up around all these chess geniuses, which is a really unusual way to grow up because you have like ex-KGB guys.
Take his childhood stories. Tate loved telling audiences that his life began like a movie script. He said his father was a chess grandmaster and bragged about winning the Indiana State Championship at just 5 years old. A tale straight out of a superhero origin story. But reality paints a different picture. His father, Emery Tate, was indeed brilliant, but his official title was International Master, not Grandmaster. And that childhood championship? No records exist. Not a single shred of proof backs up that legendary win. Piece by piece, the exaggerations stand out. What Tate presented as destiny looks more like carefully polished fiction. These weren't harmless lies. They were tools, shaping the image of a man who claimed he was born to be extraordinary. From that carefully crafted image, millions of young men started seeing Andrew Tate as their ultimate role model, the blueprint of how to live. But when the cracks in his story started spilling out, the shock was massive. People couldn't believe the so-called born genius they worshipped had built his empire on half-truths and exaggerations. At first, the doubts were whispers, quiet comments, small suspicions. Yet those whispers spread like wildfire, and the blind admiration began breaking apart piece by piece. Suddenly, the community wasn't just clapping for Tate, they were questioning him. Some diehard fans stayed loyal, fighting to defend his legend. But more and more people felt they had been fooled, tricked into buying a fantasy that never really existed. And once that trust cracked, there was no going back. The stage was set for a dramatic fall, and Tate knew it. Did he back down? Not a chance. He came out swinging, still cocky, still confident, still arrogant, the same larger-than-life persona his fans loved. But this time, his strategy changed. Instead of explaining the lies, he dropped a new bombshell.
People who don't fight have this idea that you just keep your gloves up to protect yourself. But the problem is that doesn't work. If I punch 20%, right? If I'm actually going, just like, your face will be a mess. So the idea that you just cover up doesn't work, because if I'm landing knuckle, I'll break all the bones in your hand, your glove will go into your own head.
He claimed that a shadowy matrix was trying to silence him. At first, the idea hit hard. People wanted to believe their idol was a victim, that every negative headline was part of a dark conspiracy. It gave them comfort. Their hero wasn't flawed, he was targeted. But how long could a vague story about some invisible force really hold up? The world was waiting for proof, waiting for facts, not just another act in Tate's endless drama. And that's when the admiration finally cracked wide open. What Tate thought would protect him actually backfired, planting the seeds of betrayal in his own fan base. The crowd still watched, yes, but no longer with loyalty. Now they watched with suspicion, with doubt, with cold eyes. When the fairy tale of Andrew Tate's childhood, chess, prodigy days started falling apart, he knew he needed another stage to keep his legend alive. That's when the kickboxing ring became his weapon of choice. He loudly branded himself as a 4-time K1 world champion, a title that sounded untouchable, powerful, awe-inspiring, but the reality, nowhere near as glamorous. Between 2009 and 2012, Tate did compete, yes, but the belts he collected were from smaller circuits like the International Sport Karate Association and Infusion. These weren't the top-tier stages of global kickboxing. They were low-profile events with average opponents, the kind of fights real professionals barely noticed. And that 76 wins, 9 losses record he bragged about, not exactly jaw-dropping when compared to the true elites of the sport. But Tate turned exaggeration into a business strategy. By parading around with the K1 champion label, he built a convincing facade. It was enough to fool huge audiences into believing they were following a world-class fighter. And from that image, Tate milked attention and cash. His fabricated achievements became the golden ticket for his online empire. From his courses to his speeches, everything was wrapped in the illusion that he was an unbeatable martial arts king. At the core, this wasn't about belts or records. It was about feeding his ego.
I was in England, I got tired of England, I had to decide to move somewhere, and I'd fought in Romania a few times. And I decided to go to, in fact, I'll tell you this whole story.
Tate's invincible persona couldn't risk being cracked by something as boring as reality. To admit the truth would mean tearing down the carefully crafted mythology that made him larger than life. But as the truth started leaking, fans were left shaken. To them, Tate wasn't just a fighter, he was a living symbol of strength and dominance. So when it became clear that his glittering titles weren't what they seemed, it hit like a gut punch. If even his trophies were stretched, could his so-called wisdom about life and success be trusted at all? The skepticism didn't stay locked inside his fan base. It exploded across social media. Overnight, the internet lit up with debates. Those who already hated Tate pounced, spreading receipts and reminding everyone that the so-called Alpha King was nothing but smoke and mirrors. They shared clips, articles, and posts to prove his legend was built on lies. Meanwhile, his loyal defenders clung tight, insisting it was all an orchestrated takedown.
Because Tate is still under house arrest on suspicion of human trafficking. So he got out of jail a number of weeks ago and will remain under house arrest until we'll go to trial. So there were a lot of interesting things to take out of this interview, notably how much Tate has tailored his misogyny.
A hit job on a man brave enough to speak the truth. What started as questions about his past turned into an all-out digital war of perspectives. And true to form, Tate didn't back down. He didn't admit. He didn't apologize. Instead, he doubled down with a fresh narrative, claiming he was the victim of a massive smear campaign. In his words, those exposing him weren't uncovering lies, they were jealous haters desperate to drag down a successful man. It wasn't just defiance, it was a playbook. He never addressed the evidence directly. He just flipped the spotlight elsewhere. Whenever doubts about his achievements started to surface, Tate was quick to drop a distraction. One day, it was a flashy video with supercars roaring in the background. Another day, it was a clip inside his mansion or a shocking statement designed to spark outrage. The noise drowned out the questions, and for a moment, people stopped digging into the lies and went back to watching the spectacle. Tate's genius wasn't just in exaggerating his past, it was in rewriting his story on the fly. First, he was the unbeatable champion. Then, when that image cracked, he pivoted into a new role, the fearless warrior under attack from shadowy forces. For die-hard fans, it worked. He still looked like the unbreakable alpha, but for others it reeked of desperation. That first wave of betrayal quickly morphed into collective anger. And from there, the Alpha King persona began to collapse. The cracks in Tate's kickboxing story were just the beginning. The deeper people dug, the more obvious it became. Exaggeration wasn't some one-time slip, it was a constant pattern running through his entire life. Take his big move to Romania. Tate spun it like a bold adventure. A fearless man leaving behind the corrupt West to find true freedom in a new land. To young men already frustrated with politics, culture wars, and traditional values, this sounded heroic, almost revolutionary. But when the curtain got pulled back, the truth looked far less noble. Did he really move for freedom, or was it to sidestep the law? Old clips tell the real story. Tate himself admitted he left because of the growing wave of the Me Too movement, and because in Romania, corruption made it easier to escape trouble. That doesn't sound like courage, it sounds like running. What he painted as a stand for liberty was, in reality, a tactic to shield himself from accountability. But Tate was always a master at spinning weakness into strength. By framing his escape as moral resistance, he gave his fans a story they wanted to believe. He positioned himself as the alpha defender of tradition, the lone warrior fighting against the collapse of Western values and woke culture. It wasn't just marketing, it was psychological warfare. For many followers, it became a reason to excuse every contradiction, every lie, and every shady move. Tate's empire thrived on fear, hype, and the idolization of a superhero image.
I lost nearly $600 in a year and got nothing in return except a few clips I could have found for free on YouTube.
We didn't learn how to make money, we only learned how to pull more people into this cycle.
The most painful thing isn't the lost money, but realizing my trust was exploited.
But even the strongest illusions have limits. No fan base has infinite faith. And once contradictions start piling up, doubt turns into disappointment, and disappointment turns into abandonment. If you thought his childhood chest tales or his dramatic move to Romania were just harmless theatrics, think again. Those were only the surface cracks in something much bigger. Romania wasn't just a backdrop for Tate's flashy lifestyle, it became the laboratory for his grand experiment. It was here that he fine-tuned his real strategy, crafting a persona, controlling narratives, and most importantly, converting attention into raw profit. The pattern is crystal clear. Every inflated story, every bold exaggeration wasn't just ego, it was business. Manipulation was the business model, and trust was the currency he cashed in. Tate wasn't simply offering online courses, he was selling a dream, a lifestyle, an identity. He understood that millions of young men were hungry for guidance, searching for a father figure or big brother to show them the way. By parading himself as the ultimate alpha, rich, confident, untouchable, he convinced them that he held the keys to everything they craved. Wealth, power, women, dominance. That illusion gave birth to Hustlers University, branded as the secret path to riches. But the reality, it was nothing more than a slick, multi-level marketing machine. For $50 a month, fans poured in by the hundreds of thousands, believing they were unlocking millionaire secrets. In just a year, over 200,000 signups meant Tate was pocketing at least $10 million every single month. And what did most students get? Not strategies to build empires, but instructions on how to recruit more people into the very same cycle. The backlash only raised bigger questions. If Hustlers University, his so-called ultimate path to wealth, was really just smoke and mirrors, then what else about Andrew Tate was fake? Fans and critics alike began dissecting every detail of his persona. But Tate knew how to play with emotions, and he wasn't done yet. Suddenly, rumors spread that he was battling late-stage lung cancer. The internet gasped. Sympathy poured in. And then, as if scripted, Tate made a miraculous recovery to many loyalists, it wasn't just survival, it was proof their idol was invincible. When accusations of abuse surfaced, did Tate defend himself with evidence? Not at all. He counterattacked. He launched lawsuits against the very women who accused him, a move that wasn't just legal, it was psychological warfare, a way to intimidate others into silence. Piece it all together, and a dark system emerges. Trust turned into profit, fans turned into tools, attention turned into his biggest commodity. But no illusion lasts forever. The same audience he manipulated began revolting. Former students exposed Hustlers University as a cash trap, betrayed fans fueled online rebellions. Disappointment morphed into fury and fury into rebellion, a tidal wave that Tate couldn't outrun. Then came the breaking point. In late 2022, headlines erupted. Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan arrested in Romania. Images of Tate in handcuffs, once the untouchable king of social media, were broadcast worldwide like a blockbuster downfall. The alpha persona shattered in an instant. Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube exploded with footage. Millions watched every clip frame by frame, sharing memes, hot takes, and breakdowns. Hashtags tied to Tate shot straight to the top trends in multiple countries within hours. The image of Andrew Tate cruising in supercars and lecturing about power was replaced by something no one expected: a man with his head bowed, flanked by police. That moment wasn't just a turning point in Tate's life, it was the collapse of the persona he built online. His arrest sent shockwaves worldwide. Critics saw it as long overdue justice, while old clips of him bragging about dominance were reshared alongside footage of him in handcuffs. The message was clear: no amount of followers, cars, or cash can place someone above the law. Hustlers University, billions of views, endless boasts. None of it ever proved morality. None of it made him a true role model. The internet can transform lies into truth, but evidence and accountability always expose what's real. This story forces us to ask harder questions. In an age where digital personas are polished like movie scripts, can we separate performance from reality? Can we stop mistaking clout for character? Because trust handed too easily becomes currency for manipulation. Andrew Tate wasn't a superhero, and he wasn't trapped by some matrix. He was a paper champion, a man who sold illusions until those very lies turned into his own cage. On the surface, he had belts, mansions, and cars. Under scrutiny, it was all smoke. In the end, the only matrix was the web of deception he spun around himself. And the bigger question remains: will you keep believing in online superheroes, or start seeing them for what they are? Just pixels and words on a screen?